Howdy y'all, welcome back to the Kentuckian. Glad that you've joined us for this video if you're new. I've been out for a few weeks here, had a little bit of sickness and things going on, but I'm doing better now and I'm excited to be back with you. Maren Morris, a country singer, has had a solid performance and gained a solid amount of traction over the last few years, including a couple of #1 hits, has recently announced that she's leaving country music. She's also commented on a couple of big songs in country music and music in general, especially Oliver Anthony's Men North of Richmond. Morris, who's a notable leftist, has not been kind in her comments, and yet they also seem completely hollow and out of touch. Morris had some really critical words for songs like Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town, which has gotten big recently, and Oliver Anthony's Men North of Richmond, saying that people were streaming these songs out of spite. She went on to say, it's not out of true joy or love of the music, it's to own the libs. And that's so not what music is intended for. Music is supposed to be the voice of the oppressed, the actual oppressed, and now it's being used as this really toxic weapon in culture wars. That's a big part of what she said, referencing, again, Try That in a Small Town, Men North of Richmond, songs like that. She said of Oliver Anthony in particular that she originally was impressed with his singing ability and the sound of his music, but then referencing the lyrics and the second verse in particular, which, if you're not familiar or you don't remember, references the Jeffrey Epstein client list scandal, the abuse of welfare, and the greatly inflated suicide rate among young men in the United States. She talked about this verse in particular being co-opted by the right, and originally seemed to compliment Oliver Anthony for trying to ensure that his song was not meant to be right or left, but while also saying that she had little opinion on the second verse. It threw her for a loop, as she put it, and also said that that verse had a lot of problematic stuff in it. Really kind of odd and well, honestly, fairly harsh. I mean, Maren Morris seems to be quite out there with her opinion, especially on her belief that the songs were streamed out of spite, that people didn't care about the music, and that it's supposed to be the voice of the actual oppressed. Now, to be fair, Maren Morris has had some quite out there opinions that she's been very vocal about. Even in this interview, she said some other things that would probably make a lot of people have a little bit of a double take, but this is wild. Men North of Richmond has resounded with so many people, not in political aisles, but just regular everyday people that are struggling to make ends meet. To be frank, Morris is a Nashville star that obviously doesn't know what it's like to struggle with those things, or if she ever did, she's forgotten. And these are the things that everyday folks, the people that listen to country music or music in general, do every single day, something they have to face every single day. And Maren Morris, again, either has never known that or has completely forgotten it. Morris might seem a bit of an extreme case, but it does go to one of the common problems with country music in general today. You tend not to have fairly regular people with a message and some talent, or as the saying used to go, 3 chords and the truth, speaking what they feel needs to be said. You have overproduced, curated, and tightly controlled music that's designed to appeal to the largest audience possible and not to say something authentic and hope that people like it because of that. And that's a really big problem. Her whole quote there, it's to say that people, that 78 million, I think at the time that the article was written, 78 million people that have listened to the song on YouTube alone, and a song which was #1 on the Billboard charts, not the country Billboard charts, but the general music Billboard charts for 2 weeks, and is still heavily streamed, is just streamed out of spite. And that it's not the voice of the oppressed, that it's not, it's not anything substantive. It's just people venting, basically, or feeling like they're getting some sort of cathartic release from listening to that song. It's not really caring about people that really have it bad, while ignoring that people are struggling with inflation and to make ends meet, and the economy is not doing well, and these other issues about their children and other things that people have legitimate concerns about, the suicide rates and so on. It's mind-boggling that she could be so out of touch to a certain degree, but it points out a larger cultural problem in the isolation that people with different beliefs tend to have from other people's real-world problems. People that believe like Morris, and there are plenty of them, cannot comprehend how the issues that were addressed in Men North of Richmond that make it so repulsive to certain people, that affect so many folks on an everyday basis, could even be a problem in their world in the way they see reality. They've never experienced it, they've never lived it, nor do they care to try and understand. And that's a huge problem. And this interview and this little spat that Maren Morris has gone after this song and had some extremely harsh words to say about it is a microcosm of that issue. Now, it could be argued that people on the other side of the spectrum struggle with the same thing, and that may be fair, but what happens when you compare the practical problems, quote unquote, that both sides want to address? You're comparing people that think it's important that children have the ability to have their private parts surgically removed and then put on certain chemicals to affirm something that every child thinks about from a natural developmental process instead of training them, and the supposed oppression of groups of people that have entire months devoted to them, and politicians that bend over backwards, and even the suspension of laws to allow them to do what they want. While on the other side, you have folks that are struggling to make ends meet and feed their kids because 40% or more of their income is taken by taxes, while the government says they're not responsible enough to raise their own children and to take care of their own children, and then send billions of dollars to countries that the average person wants nothing to do with, while our own people suffer. And there's zero accountability. They gaslight you. They tell you complete falsehoods right to your face because they know you won't do anything about it. Look at the practical issues that are at play here. Compare them. These people think that this is a problem. These other people think that this is a problem. Which one has the more practical, realistic reality backing it? You all can answer that question for yourself. But this interview from this Nashville elite, and she's done well, fantastic. She's made a life for herself, great. But let's be real about what real people have to deal with on an everyday basis. Look at the practical issues at play here. Compare the two. Yeah, maybe the people on the quote-unquote right, as she wants to put it, that struggle to feed their kids because the economy's so bad, maybe they don't put themselves in the shoes of other people enough, although I have plenty of opinions on that I don't have time to get into there. But even if you give that for the sake of argument, look at the practical problems at play here. I did briefly also want to talk about why she might be doing this. Maren Morris has always been very vocal about her beliefs while she's been in Nashville, or for a long time she has been. And she certainly has a chip on her shoulder about this sort of thing. In the interviews that I've referenced for this video and other things that she has said and done makes that abundantly clear. She does have something she feels like needs to be said for whatever reason. And her popularity is somewhat waned. There could be a little bit of jealousy, or maybe it's a publicity stunt that's involved as she's moving from country to another genre of music to try and give her a little bit of a boost. That is nothing that's necessarily uncommon. And to be fair, she's kind of punching up at this point. She's not punching down anymore, at least if you compare the recent success of Oliver Anthony's songs compared to hers. Regardless, I don't want to emphasize that too much. It's not supposed to be a hit piece on her. That's simply for analysis. It's important to look at the facts and the reality of what she's saying, not as much why she's saying it, but it is good for analysis and why she might be doing these sorts of things. Oh, there's a lot more that could be said on this. There's a lot of things to go into deconstructionism and Maren Morris and her view on country music and how it really illustrates some big cultural issues that are out there, and that may be an episode at another time. But anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that you found it informative. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Tell me what you think down in the comments below about this. It does really help. YouTube has not necessarily been favorable to me, and anything you can do like that does make a difference if you like the Kentuckian. And if you'd like to support me in a more personal way, my Patreon is also linked down in the description below. And remember, friends, as long as you and I are doing what's right, we make a real difference in this old world. I've been Ryan Dalton of the Kentuckian, signing off.